All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're investigating one of the absolute most baffling anomalies in both historical and biblical analysis. We're going to look at a mystery that scholars, theologians, and historians have literally wrestled with for decades. It's this wild puzzle that sits right at the intersection of ancient texts and modern geopolitics.
It sounds like a pretty straightforward question, right? Where exactly is America in the end times? But honestly, it holds a pretty chilling mystery. See, in over 2,000 years of recorded biblical prophecy that explicitly names empires, kings, and kingdoms with startling accuracy, the nation with the greatest military and the largest economy the world has ever seen is completely, utterly absent.
And it's not just that America is described as getting defeated in some massive battle. It's that it's simply not mentioned, not defeated, not mentioned, not even a footnote. I mean, think about the starkness of that absence for a second. A nation that has shaped literally every single corner of the modern globe just vanishes from the eschatological map, almost as if it never existed at all.
So the real kicker here is just how unprecedented this anomaly actually is. We are talking about the absolute greatest military force in human history, the world's largest economy, a total cultural juggernaut, and yet zero presence in these ancient visions of the end times. To explain this massive geopolitical blind spot, scholars and researchers have developed three distinct frameworks. Let's take a look at them.
Okay, Theory 1, historical collapse.
The first theory is perhaps the simplest, mostly because it's grounded in the grim reality of history. History brutally illustrates that no empire is exempt from collapse, no matter how permanent they feel at the time. I mean, for over 500 years, Rome was the unquestioned master of the known world. They literally called themselves Aeternam Roma, Eternal Rome. And today, well, it's mostly a beautiful tourist attraction selling overpriced gelato. Then you have the British Empire. It was so vast that the sun literally never set on it, controlling a full quarter of the globe. Today, its global footprint is just a fraction of what it once was.
And you know, this historical unraveling almost always follows a really strict pattern. It rarely ends with some massive cinematic bang. It's a structured decline. First, a civilization rises through vision and strength. Second, it hits its absolute peak of influence. And third, it suffers a quiet erosion. This happens through moral decay, economic overextension, political division, cultural collapse. Basically, it's a slow, steady crumbling from the inside out.
It reveals this incredibly brutal reality of human history. Every single empire believes it's the exception. They all thought they were permanent, but none ever has been. It is a historical absolute.
So looking at those three stages of empire decline, we kind of have to ask ourselves a pretty uncomfortable question. Which stage is America in right now? I'll let you ponder that one as we move on to our second framework.
And that brings us to Theory 2, the Babylon Mystery.
So, what if America isn't actually missing at all, but is just hiding in plain sight? In Revelation chapter 18, the Apostle John describes a mysterious end-times power known as Babylon the Great. He describes a nation so unbelievably wealthy and so globally dominant that when it suddenly falls, the entire world actually mourns its destruction.
Now, a lot of people instinctively just assume John is talking about ancient Babylon over in modern-day Iraq. But there is a massive scholarly roadblock with that assumption. Ancient Babylon today is just sand and silence. It hasn't had an economy, a military, or any cultural influence for over 1,000 years. It exports nothing. But the Babylon the Great described in this prophecy is completely characterized by overwhelming global economic and military dominance.
Let's actually methodically run through the exact criteria from the text. This nation sits on many waters, meaning it controls global trade routes. Its merchants are the great men of the earth, shaping the entire global marketplace. Its music, its culture, and its luxury goods are consumed in literally every nation. It possesses unprecedented military might. And finally, it suffers a sudden, catastrophic collapse in a single hour. Ask yourself, which modern nation fits those exact, precise parallels today?
And that realization has led a growing number of serious scholars to a pretty startling conclusion. When John was writing on the island of Patmos 2,000 years ago, he wasn't describing ancient Babylon. He was describing a nation that hadn't even been born yet. In this theory, America isn't missing. America is the prophecy. It's the very center of the whole shebang.
All right, let's pivot to Theory 3, sudden disappearance.
This is an event widely known as the Rapture.
It stems from a theological premise found in 1 Thessalonians 4, describing an event where believers are suddenly removed from the earth before the final, catastrophic tribulations even begin. For many Christians, this sudden disappearance perfectly explains America's total absence on the prophetic world stage.
To really grasp the geopolitical impact of something like that, you just need to look at this number. There are tens of millions of self-identified Christians currently residing in the United States. No other global superpower has a higher percentage of its population identifying this way.
The domino effect here would be immediate and absolutely catastrophic. If tens of millions of citizens instantly vanish, pilots disappear from cockpits, soldiers abandon their posts, doctors vanish right out of operating rooms. The critical infrastructure of the United States gets gutted in an absolute instant. It leads to a chaotic geopolitical collapse not caused by a foreign war, but by a sudden, overwhelming power vacuum.
And this brings us to the core conclusion of this third theory. It perfectly answers why American diplomacy, American economic leverage, or the American military are completely missing from any subsequent end times events. Because in the absolute chaos and panic that follows an event like this, there is simply no functioning America left to intervene.
So, the unanswered question. Let's pull all of this together. We've unpacked 3 fascinating frameworks attempting to solve a 2,000-year-old mystery, and we are basically left with 3 mutually exclusive but equally intense possibilities. Either America is a superpower hollowed out by the inescapable historical cycle of decline, or it's a nation hiding in plain sight, playing the tragic role of Babylon the Great in Revelation. Or finally, it's a country completely emptied and collapsed by the sudden divine removal of tens of millions of its citizens.
The ultimate takeaway from this explainer is a pretty stark historical truth. History does not grant exemptions. Every single empire that has ever looked at itself and said, "We're different, we cannot fall," has ultimately fallen. So the question isn't really whether America is somehow exempt from the patterns of history or ancient texts.
The real question is, which role is it actually playing? As you look at all the evidence we just covered, the historical patterns, the textual parallels, which theory makes the most sense to you? And perhaps more importantly, whichever framework turns out to be true, are you ready?